Hello and welcome again to the Dancing with Wisdom podcast, where we're going through a series interviewing leaders in the second half of life who are doing fascinating and amazing things with their lives, as well as learning about their life journey. And so inviting back Ken Wright. Great to have you again, Ken.
It's great to be here, and it's great to think I'm only in my second half of life.
That's right.
Probably the last 10%, I think.
Well, Ken is 75. We're giving away our ages. I turned 60 this year. But we want to prove that in Christ, it can only get better and better.
Absolutely.
And the best is yet to come. So no matter what we're talking about, our best days are always ahead of us.
Absolutely.
So, Ken, in our last conversation, we had a fascinating conversation about your journey of faith at the age of 16. Well, when your mum came to faith, actually. She came to faith at the age when you were 16. And how the journey of how you two came to faith and how you got involved with what was called the Upper Room, a number of young teenagers who you and your wife Jan discipled together, and how that prepared you for a career in the post office. Not as an average postman, much more than your average postman. Starting off as an engineer, but then rising all the way up to become Chief Operating Officer at the post office, in charge of 130,000 people with a budget of 5 billion, which we said was a lot of money in those days. And there was a lot of people in those days, and it still is. But I think the principle that came out was God's hand on your life, and also in terms of being open to what God wanted to do and seeking his kingdom and his righteousness first, and the amazing way that God guided and led you. And we had a quote from Martin Luther King, which I'm going to build on. In this conversation, we're going to think about leadership lessons from your life that you're going to kindly take us through. That quote from Martin Luther King is, I think, fascinating because it talks about the importance of having a serving attitude and looking to serve others. And what Martin Luther King said was that everybody can be great. Why? Because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics in physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. And service is really about leadership, isn't it, Ken? I think that's one of the sort of fascinating truths that's not really understood by our society and culture. Why don't you just walk us through about the leadership lessons that you've had and what that means for you?
Yeah, thank you, Sunil. That's no, I think I suppose I didn't articulate the idea of service early on, but I think I always knew intuitively that Jesus said, if you want to be a leader, that you need to wash other people's feet.
Yes.
And you need to say, we don't think like the world. No. Because we're not hierarchy. We turn the hierarchy the right way round.
Yes, that's
so
right.
That the leader is serving and supporting.
Yes.
So I as a leader in Royal Mail, I didn't actually ever work for what's now called the Post Office, just so that people aren't confused. In days gone by, the Post Office covered a number of different companies, including British Telecom, Royal Mail, Parcelforce, and so on. I only ever really worked for British Telecom and Royal Mail. But this was a simple model developed by a man called John Adair, who was a Christian, or is it? I think if he's still alive, he's a Christian. He put together this simple 3 components of leadership, and it's about achieving the task, sharing the vision, giving people a purpose and a meaning for what they're doing, but also drawing together the right mix of people into a team where people can play in the right positions and use their gifts. And then also investing in individuals to develop the individual. So I felt I had this kind of tattooed on my forehead, right. As a leader, these are the 3 things constantly.
Yeah. So you've got a task to perform. You've got the people who do that task who you've got to nurture and care for as individuals, but then in the context of the team as well. Yes. So it's a very helpful paradigm.
I think so, because it's essentially very relational, isn't it? Because two of the 3 circles are about people.
Yes.
And about people working together.
And often people tend to think of one more than the other. So they think about, we've got a job to get done, which is important.
Yes.
But then the relationships, and the people are very relationship focused.
Yes.
But if you can combine the 2 together, then that's so powerful.
That's what leaders do, whether they do it consciously or intuitively. Yeah, because sometimes you can you can be so people focused that you don't achieve what you're paid to do.
Yes.
On the other hand, if you're so task focused, then you tread over people and you don't get the best out of it.
And then the third nuance there is that it's the individual, but then their relationship in context of the team who need to get the job done.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think we might compare Jesus's idea and his teaching about what it means to be a leader, and compared with the world's paradigm, as I've called it here. One stage of my career, I became a district head postmaster. I was responsible for the Royal Mail within Lancashire and South Cumbria. And so it was quite a big job, of 5,000 employees or so. And when I started this job, I discovered that there was a car park designated for the head postmaster.
Right, his own special
car park. And so I had a transport manager, and I chatted to the transport. I said, I don't think I should use this car park. And he said, well, why not? He said, I said, because we're short of space and we need to be able to get more red vans in underneath the sorting office. And he said, oh, well, be it on your own head, because if you park your car where everybody else parks on the waste ground nearby, it'll be vandalised.
Oh.
So, sure enough, he was right. It was vandalised.
Oh, no. Yeah.
But what I did do was I said, why don't we use this car park space? Actually, let's not use it for a red van. Let's use it for the employee of the month.
Okay.
And let's give it to the person that other colleagues nominate as the employee of the month. So that's what we did. The first person that won it didn't have a car, but had a push bike.
Right.
And they very proudly parked their push bike in this space. So
beautiful.
I know in a way that's an illustration that sometimes, as leaders, we need to reject the hierarchy.
Yes.
And use perhaps the power that we have.
Yes.
To serve other people.
That's fascinating. That.
Because I think you might say that being a leader starts with knowing yourself, and most of us don't really know ourselves that way. We may have a slightly distorted perception of ourselves. I'm sure I have.
And if I don't know myself, then I don't know my blind spots and weaknesses. And the danger is that I then project that onto other people.
Absolutely.
And I cause other problems. And there's so many problems in leadership, in politics, because people haven't sorted out their own inner stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We either project stuff onto other people, or we choose other people that are like us because that makes us feel secure.
Yes. And then we have blind spots, and we don't, and we get blindsided.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we need each other in the body of Christ, and in
business.
Yeah,
in business
absolutely.
as well.
Yeah, so knowing yourself, who you are, what you value, what your relationships are, knowing what your gifts are, your skills, your competencies, actually understanding the context. I've seen so many leaders go into situations thinking they know the answers, and they haven't even asked any questions about the history or the people or what's happened before.
They have this confidence and this blasé about themselves, which in a sense, if people who aren't sure of themselves, they gravitate towards.
Yes.
But you can be walking off the edge of a cliff, where you can confidently going in the wrong direction.
Exactly.
Yeah. And in business, that can be so dangerous.
So disastrous.
Yeah.
And people, you can see the same mistakes being made over and over again. Yeah, and why wouldn't you honour the past? Cheap leaders rubbish the past and say everything in the past is bad, everything from now on is good. Yes. And that can't be true, actually. No. It's too simplistic.
We're standing on the shoulders of giants who've gone before us, who've sacrificed, who've done other things that enable us to get to this point. And I think honouring the past is a very helpful phrase.
Important. Yeah. It's certainly a biblical principle, isn't it?
Yes.
To remember the past.
Yes.
And make sure we don't make the same mistakes.
And again, in our secular environment, an individualistic secular environment, it's all about the here and now. And it's just about me, rather than realising, no, I'm the result of previous generations who have sacrificed, who have laboured to enable me to get to this point. And I think honouring the past is a very helpful phrase.
Yeah,
because it doesn't mean to say it was all good either.
No, of course not. No,
but there is
may
something
be different.
But there is something about the way that it's got us to where we are, and so let's learn from the mistakes as well.
Yes,
as well as the good things. I think.
Yeah, exactly, and keep the things that work, but renew the things that need to be changed.
Yeah.
And obviously we also need to know what our vision is, what our calling is.
And that's the mark of a leader, isn't it? A leader who says, okay, well, we're going in this direction. I know we've surveyed it, and this is the direction we're going to take.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a quote there that is very similar to the one you opened with, in a way. It's another Martin Luther King quote.
Why don't you read it out to us?
Yeah, it says...
Actually, let's start with...
It says, well, I think that...
Read it out to us for those who are listening.
The top little phrase there is obviously from the Bible, from the New Testament.
Yes.
And that's always been...
Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters.
Exactly. So work as for working for the Lord. So imagine if Jesus is there with you in your workplace. How would you behave differently?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
We all would be. If Jesus walked in the room now, we would...
Exactly.
I often imagine, what would it be like for Jesus physically to walk in the room?
Yes, right.
How would we react?
And so it's about living with a deep consciousness of God.
Yes.
That although I physically can't see him,
yes,
he is seeing everything I'm doing. He's knowing everything I'm thinking.
Yes.
And so living with that awareness that ultimately I won't be able to hide from him. I might think I can, but I can't hide from him.
There's no place I can hide from him.
And how much embezzling and how much wrongdoing would be stopped if we had that awareness.
Yes, exactly.
That Jesus is watching everything I do.
Yeah, so you're right. In a way, that's the theme of my perspective of looking back on the history. Work as for the Lord. And because people, if they know you're a Christian, they're going to be watching you.
Yes.
And they're perhaps going to watch to see if you fall.
And maybe with higher standards as well. You know, he calls himself a Christian, look at what he does, or
yes, exactly.
Look at what she does, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
So watch your thinking, watch your speaking, and so the quote from Martin Luther King: if a person is called to be a street sweeper, they should sweep streets like Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. They should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth should pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who did their job well.
What a fantastic quote.
Yeah.
What a brilliant quote there. Yeah. And
I guess that it's so important to have purpose and give people meaning. That's what leaders do. This slide is a reflection of a story about a man called Terry Waite.
Yes,
Terry Waite was the Archbishop of Canterbury's representative.
And we're talking about the 1990s, I think. Probably sometime in the 90s. Yeah, sometime in the 90s. Late 80s, early 90s. Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, that period.
And he's sent to Lebanon, because Lebanon's got a civil war going on at that time, and he's sent to try and bring some peace as a representative of the Archbishop of Canterbury. He's taken prisoner by Hezbollah, and he's then imprisoned in solitary confinement for years, and nobody knows what's happened to him. People think he's somewhere in Lebanon. And a woman from Britain who didn't know Terry Waite but had been praying for him, she sends a postcard, and on the postcard is a picture of John Bunyan in prison.
Right, okay. John Bunyan who wrote
Pilgrim's Progress.
I think in the 1600s, I think, yeah.
Yes. So, and she just writes a simple postcard saying, Dear Terry, I'm praying for you.
Yes.
And it says, Terry Waite, Lebanon, somewhere in the Lebanon.
Wow.
And if you work in Royal Mail, you know that postal people love to solve clues.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge to find how. And I'm sure that must have been true of the Lebanese post office, because they eventually managed to get the postcard to Terry Waite.
Wow.
When he was finally released, he came down from the aeroplane. He only had one thing in his hand. Guess what it was? It was that postcard.
Amazing.
And he said, this postcard kept me alive. Wow. So I used to use that story to say to postmen and women working in big sorting offices, where sometimes a letter could fall on the floor and somebody might, accidentally stand on it and think that it's nothing. Well, it is not. It's not nothing.
No.
Every single letter matters.
Matters, yeah.
And giving that meaning, that for what can be mundane, repetitive jobs,
yes, that's
is
right.
so important.
Because they all look the same. I mean, the envelopes will all look practically the same on the outside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they all belong to somebody.
Yes.
And they could be carrying a message of love.
Yes.
They could be carrying a message of heartache, of somebody who's died. It could be a hospital appointment.
Yes.
It could be a result of an exam that's important.
So it's having a bigger vision So what you're doing, you were instilling a bigger vision into your postmen and women about the work they were doing and the importance of the work they were doing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely, because it's so easy to think it doesn't matter, but it does matter.
And I'm sort of reminded, of that old story about men working on a building site, and you ask three of them, what are you doing? One says, well, I'm just putting one brick on another. Another says, I'm feeding my family. The third says, I'm building a temple to worship the living God.
Yes,
so
exactly.
They're doing exactly the same things, but completely different perspectives.
So perspective is important, isn't it? And leaders give the right perspective.
Thank you.
And I think praying for your team is important.
Maybe not overtly, but in your heart as well.
Yes, I think it's one thing I regret, really. I wish I'd have prayed for people more, actually, and prayed about decisions a bit more. I did pray about decisions, but I think that...
if you'd been more intentional about it?
Be more intentional. I remember when I first came across a model called StrengthsFinder.
Yes,
which is
by Gallup. Yes, that's right.
By Gallup. They researched what made leaders effective.
Yes,
and one of the stories they told was about some supermarket manager in the Midwest of the United States of America had stellar results in his retail sales.
Yes,
and when they went to investigate him, what they found was he had this innate ability to treat every individual as an individual without being unfair or unequal.
Yes.
He would treat people equally, but he wouldn't treat people the same. He would
because he knew what their strengths were.
He knew what their strengths were, and you had that ability to press the right buttons with people. So I think understanding people is an important clue about how you might unlock the potential.
And so as you understand their strengths, you understand what their unique contribution to the organisation is.
Yes.
And so you employ people, or you utilise people in their area of strength. So they feel good, because when we're working in our strengths, we feel good.
Absolutely.
And the organisation benefits as well. So it's a win-win all round. Yeah.
I mean, this is not a cynical statement, but it is said that people only do three things at work.
Okay.
The things they like doing, the things they're good at, which is usually similar to what they like doing, and the things their boss checks on.
Yes.
And there's probably some truth in that.
There is something about that as well.
But ideally, if we can design jobs around the individual rather than trying to fit the individual to a job.
Yes. The sort of square peg and round hole kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Like that.
I think we need to be brave and take measured risks. Back in the late 1980s, I had the privilege to go and benchmark or visit some big companies in America that had won what was called the Baldrige Award in America.
Okay.
It's like a national award for only given to a couple of companies each year to recognise their quality, their level of quality in their organisation.
Yes.
And Motorola was one of those companies. The people that make phones. In those days, they made car radios.
Yes, that's right. They made that's right.
They make phones.
They were a big company in their day. I don't know where they are now, but I don't think they're so big now. Yeah.
Probably not. No.
Yeah.
But they had this training thing where it was like a chessboard on the floor, big chessboard.
Right.
So you had like 6 squares across and 6 squares deep, and you had to take 6 steps.
Yes.
But only one of the 6 in each row was the right one to step on, and you didn't know what the pattern was.
Right.
So you tested, and the buzzer rang if it was the right one, and then and you didn't lose points going across, even though you were making lots of mistakes.
Yes.
But then you had to come back.
Right.
And you had to remember the pattern.
Oh, which was the path?
And you then lost points.
Ah.
So the moral was, it's good to experiment, make mistakes, fail fast, but learn from those things. And don't make the same mistake twice.
Yes. And then you can be brave, take measured risks, and then make decisions.
Exactly.
Like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is managing by fact.
What do you mean by that? Yeah.
Well, it's very easy to have a hunch, and hunches are important, I think.
Yes. Your intuition.
Intuition's important. But we also need to test that against the realities.
That's right.
And I know that we're swamped by data these days, and people present data in a way which is manipulative often because they've got a particular angle. They quote things out of context.
Yes.
So the facts need to be in context. I mean, I'll give you an example. One of the earlier jobs I did, I was a site engineer at a banking centre.
Right.
But the staff, the engineering staff there, the union representing them had negotiated a shorter working week.
Right, okay.
So we had to take 2.5 hours. And it was a shift system. So there were 4 shifts.
And so the bank was working sort of 24.
It was a 24/7 operation.
Right.
With 4 shifts, earlies, lates, nights, and a spare shift. They were generally working an 8-hour day, and it had to be reduced by half an hour a day or something like that.
Yes.
And the union had put forward proposals which were interesting because they argued the shifts needed to overlap.
Right.
Because there needed to be a handover from one shift to the next,
other.
which sounded quite plausible.
Yes.
But it was going to be very, very much more expensive.
Right, okay.
And I wasn't convinced. Intuitively, I didn't think that was the right solution.
It didn't seem quite right. Yeah.
So what we did is we looked at the facts, and we looked at thousands of fault dockets that were, because these were maintenance people. And we found that only a fraction of 1% ever were handed over from
less than
one
1%.
Less than even 0.1%. It was
Wow.
it was a tiny amount.
Yeah.
So
you actually researched it. You actually
Yes. So when I met with the union, and a very strong negotiator, he'd been in the 8th Army, and he first thing he ever said to me was, we sorted the Jerrys out in the Second World War, and we've come back to sort out management. And
a new adversary.
He was a strong, and I was only in my 20s. He was in his 50s. So it was talk about the power imbalance. But so when I presented this, of course, they walked out, but they had to come back, and they knew the facts I was presenting.
Yes, the facts are the facts.
Yeah. So that was.
So beware of your intuition. Sometimes it's right. Sometimes it's completely wrong.
Yes.
And engage with reality.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, how much do we need to hear that message in our day and age? How many people say, "I feel this is the right thing for me. Yeah. I feel I should do this or be this."
Yes.
But actually, the facts are your friends. They're not your enemies.
They should be. Yeah,
they should be. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, seeking feedback. We all love good, positive feedback.
Yeah.
We don't always cherish what feels like hurtful feedback.
Yes.
So feedback needs to be delivered well.
Yes.
I learnt my lesson on this. We in Royal Mail, we introduced an annual feedback system, a structured feedback system for leaders.
Yes.
So I had a team of 8 people reporting to me, different functions, HR, finance, engineering, and so on. I was a general manager, and we introduced this, and my team would then score me against a whole series of criteria.
Yes.
And generally I was scored okay. But the one area I had a really mixed bag. 4 people marked me very high, and 4 people marked me very low.
Yes.
Was investing in the individual, in the development of individuals.
Yes.
So I found this quite strange, because I would always thought to myself, well, I am concerned about development of individuals,
yes.
and I try to spend time working on development plans and all that sort of thing.
So why is this coming?
So I got the team together, and we had a good relationship because it was anonymous. The results were anonymous, but then they could tell me what they'd voted if they wanted to do that.
Yes.
And 4 of them said, well, we voted you negatively, and the other 4 said we voted positive for these reasons. The ones that voted negatively all of them had only been in their jobs they'd all been in their jobs more than 3 years.
Right.
The ones that voted positively had not been in their jobs more than a year. And I think what had happened was I had inadvertently focused my attention on the people who were new to their roles.
Right.
And forgetting that people who'd been in their roles for some time still needed development.
Now that's a fascinating insight, and that's so valuable to know, because it wasn't something you were doing consciously.
No, I wasn't doing it consciously.
It's only because you got the feedback
that
you realise, oh my goodness, this is what I'm consciously doing. I need to make sure that I'm nurturing my talent who have been around.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I suppose, they might go off somewhere else.
Well, you could lose. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think we talked before about Strength Finder, but one of the things I learned at Strength Finder is that often the way we're taught to do reviews, performance reviews.
Oh yes, it's like school, isn't it? It's just like school, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think fell into the trap of thinking, well, I'd sit down with someone and say, well, look, you're great at sales,
yes,
and you're great at persuading people, but you're not very good with spreadsheets,
yes,
with numbers. And so we'll send you on an Excel course.
Yes.
Which sounds quite plausible, but when you think about it, it's laughable.
Yes.
Because why would you send someone who's not very good with numbers to
Yes.
try to, when they're great at presenting or great at selling ideas?
Yes.
Give them more sales to do. So it's the idea of, imagine, I'm an Everton supporter. We have a good goalkeeper called Jordan Pickford.
Yes.
But I don't suppose he's a particularly good, he may be, but I can't imagine he's a particularly good striker.
No.
But look, Jordan, you're a great goalkeeper, but let's make you a fully rounded footballer by sending you on a striker's course.
Yeah, it's stupid. Yeah.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
It's like, let's see how we can make you an even better goalkeeper.
Yeah, because that's where your strengths are. And
so play to strengths, really.
Hugely important and so often missed. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah.
I mean, explaining the why, leaders often fail because they don't really take the time to say, why are we doing it this way? Why are we doing this at all?
Yes.
Yes. One of the roles I had to go in and sort out a branch of Royal Mail that was failing in its service. And we had to do some quite radical things, which meant moving work from one location actually into another country, because there was a border between Chester and North Wales.
Yes.
And you can imagine the people who were losing the work were
really
threatening
upset
to go on strike.
They're really upset, yeah.
So what myself and the unit manager did, we spent 24 hours literally briefing every single employee. There were about 500 or so employees.
Yes.
And we saw every single person in groups, very small groups,
yes,
to explain the why.
Yes.
And the union tried to call a strike, and it didn't happen. Amazing. They didn't get the vote.
Right.
Because people had understood and there was some, and we were protecting people's jobs as well.
Yes, and so there was a humanity in the whole process, and saying, okay, although it's a difficult decision to make,
yes,
we're not treating you as machines in a cog. These are the facts of the situation.
Yes.
And so it makes no sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And rather than sending a letter, or these days you might say,
or a text,
actually go and speak to people face to face.
Yeah.
But we used to call it by word of foot.
By word of foot. Yes, explaining the why.
That's and I think recognising people, and it's so easy, especially in big organisations, to take people for granted.
Yes.
I once had a young marketing executive come to shadow me for a month or something like that, because her employer was a big mailing house and a marketing agency, and they wanted her to understand how Royal Mail operated.
Yes.
And she spent the month with me. And at the end of it, I said, well, what did you learn? She said, well, lots of good things. She said, but the thing that really surprised me was every night we get all this mail coming in. There's a huge amount of activity. It works like magic.
Yes.
And then at the end of the evening, at 10 o'clock, when all the mails we shipped onto the trains or the vans, nothing happens. It's like a deadness.
Yes.
She said, well, why doesn't somebody just say, well done? We've got the mail away on time.
Yes. Celebrate.
Why doesn't the chief inspector, the shift manager, stand up somewhere and say, thank you, you've done a great job?
What a great insight. Yeah.
And it's such a simple thing, and that really impacted me. I thought, she's right. So I used to keep a file called a good news file. It wasn't the gospel, but it was good news.
Yeah.
And I used to get my secretary, if I'd written to somebody, I would put a copy in this file. And at the end of each month, I'd look back and say, have I recognised enough people this month?
Yes.
Because providing it's not artificial, and providing it's a genuine, authentic.
Yes. You're being very specific. This is what you've done that has made a difference.
Yes. Yeah. Then it's huge. It's that story, isn't it? There was a US president when they stepped down. People came and they had hundreds of people. Had these little cards that was from the President of the United States, and it was just a thank you.
Yeah. Oh, then
and it meant so much to
that becomes priceless. Yeah,
becomes absolutely priceless.
Yeah. And so, coming from the chief operating officer of somebody senior in a 5,000 member organisation is huge. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think praying for the team, we mentioned it before, and decisions. I think I regret I didn't pray more. But for big decisions, I always did pray. And I remember once I had a postman who'd got into trouble in a fight.
Right.
And I was the local general manager, and he came before me for dismissal because it was gross misconduct.
Yes.
He put somebody else in hospital.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And I knew that he'd been in the army before he came in Royal Mail, and I knew this. He was only in his late 20s.
Oh.
I knew he would never do this again.
No, and it's going to be a stain on his work career.
He came before me in tears with his union rep.
Yes.
And it said, "I'll never work again if you sack me." But what could I have done? Because in one sense he'd gone, there was an element of justice here as well as mercy.
Mm.
So how do you exercise mercy and justice?
Yeah, yeah.
So I prayed about it. And the next day I called him back and I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to dismiss you. Because you've gone, I used a theological idea, I don't know if sure he understood me, but I said, you've gone beyond the redemptive reach of the discipline code. Because the discipline code is meant to be corrective rather than punitive.
Yes. So look for attenuating circumstances, look for ways that we can try and rehabilitate you back into the organisation. But you crossed the line.
You crossed the line.
You crossed the line.
So I said to him, but I don't believe you'll ever do this again, so I'll do something unusual. And my HR manager was sort of got a bit nervous at this stage.
What's he going to do? Yeah.
I said, I will personally represent you to a future employer because I don't think you'll ever do this again. Wow. The HR manager said to me, you can't do this. We don't give even references for people who've been dismissed for gross misconduct. Right. And I said, well, I think that's a silly rule. We're going to break that rule.
Wow.
And within 2 weeks, this young man rang me and said, I just want to thank you because I've got a better job. It pays me more. It's closer to home and I've learnt my lesson. I didn't even have to represent him.
Wonderful. But you've given him the confidence that it wasn't all lost.
Yeah, exactly.
You've given him the hope.
Yes.
Because somebody in that situation could have gone away and maybe even committed suicide.
Absolutely.
There would have been that risk.
And I learnt a lesson that you shouldn't colour the decision, over-colour the decision by the pastoral implications.
No.
And I think a lot of church leaders make this mistake.
Right.
If they don't take the right decision because they're so preoccupied with what pastoral implications.
Pastoral care, yeah.
What you do is you make the right decision, but then you don't walk away from the pastoral.
That's so helpful, actually, Ken, because I think you're right, because you get so wrapped up with the feelings about how the person is feeling.
Yes.
As opposed to what is the objective truth around all this.
Yes.
But I think that's fantastic, but you don't walk away from the person once you've made that decision. Thank you. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's so powerful.
Absolutely. So that's it. This final slide, I think, just summarises what we've talked about. Yes.
Yeah, and we've talked about all these things. Fascinating, really. You work as for the Lord. See yourself as a servant. Know yourself. Your blind spots, your strengths and weaknesses. Create purpose and share in compelling vision. Because when the people understand the why, then although they might disagree with you, they can at least, in a sense, accept the decision. They've got more understanding to accept the decision. Yes. The importance about, part of being a leader is being brave, making mistakes, and, as it were, getting back up quickly when you fall down. Managing by fact. Thank you so much for amazing stories about managing by fact, not by intuition. Seeking to give regular, honest feedback. How often in organisations do people carry on doing their work and just get forgotten and feel nobody cares? Invest in people's strength. You talked a lot about, maybe praying more intentionally and explaining the why you do things, praying for your team, recognising, honouring love. What amazing insights as well. And thank you so much for sharing, from your career, what was going on, behind that role of Chief Operating Officer and the humanness of that and learning. I'm going to close with that quote that you gave us as well at the beginning from Martin Luther King is if a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted or Beethoven composed music or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ken Wright, and thank you for opening up just the importance of leadership and serving and being more than a postman. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunil.